A very good evening to one and all, and welcome to yet another webinar series in association with PediSTARS India. I am Shruti Bharadwaj, a proud volunteer at Project Step 1. I welcome the entire team of PediSTARS India watching this webinar, the parents, the teachers, and the children. Before we start, about Project Step 1, the ongoing pandemic has made humanity face unprecedented crisis. But our doctors and the medical team have proved to be the heroes during the past 7 months. Our Project Step 1 doctors have made great impact on millions of lives and have done more than 750 consultations and have been successful in preventing more than 5 million contacts. Dear doctors, Step 1 and the citizens need just 30 minutes of your every day. Your 30 minutes every day can save thousands of lives. Give a missed call on 080-471-92219 to join the largest doctor volunteer group. About today's session, the need for increased first aid training and awareness is critical. With basic first aid training, children have introduced to fundamental transferable skills. It's true that having first aid and training undoubtedly helps save lives, though that is not all. Giving appropriate first aid immediately can help and reduce a person's recovery time and make difference between patient having a temporary or a long-term disability. Without taking much time, I welcome the moderator for today's session, Dr. Sujata Tyagarajan, pediatric intensivist, Rainbow Children's Hospital, Bangalore. She's also a founder of PediSTARS India. I welcome and over to you, doctor.
Thank you, Shruti. This is Dr. Sujata Tyagarajan here. I'm a pediatric intensivist based in Bangalore. And my passion for first aid is by seeing how children actually present to us, and how the parents and teachers panic when they reach us. I thought I'll just, share with you some of the, our brilliant panelists who are here. I would request our panelists to self-introduce themselves.
Yes, doctor, your presentation is on the different sheet. So if you can just quickly shift it to, yes, now that's right. Thank you so much.
So may I request Mrs. Nirupa to introduce herself?
Yeah. Hello all. My name is Nirupa and I'm from Bangalore. I work for a UAE-based organization and I head their operations. I'm very happy to be part of this first aid panel today, representing all the parents. First aid, I think, is one very vital topic that every parent should have awareness and knowledge. This could help us prevent situations from becoming worse. Also, it gives parents and child little time to comfort each other. So we have time to think better and we can assess the situation and act forward. Well, I could relate this instance that happened with me when my son was 2 years old. We were at the airport and we had an hour to board the flight, and it was a long flight for us. And my son suddenly started saying that there was some bee or bug in his ears. He was not very vocal then. He just had very few words, and we could not understand what he was trying to say. And we were kind of frozen at that place, and he was totally crying, screaming, and we didn't know what to do and what to handle or how to handle, because we only had basic medication for a fever. So that is all we had in our hand. And thankfully, there was a doctor around in the airport who was able to assist us and, calm us down and help us through that situation. So I think situation like this arises to every parent at some given point of time. And it basically, is very much needed for us to have some basic idea about first aid to at least handle those kind of situations. So this session, I think, is going to be extremely helpful for parents like us to understand some safety measures, and we can learn to prevent a disastrous moment from happening. So I'm really looking forward to gaining more knowledge on this topic for the benefit of all. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Usha Mohan, working as a high school teacher in a reputed school in Bangalore South. First aid is the first and the immediate assistance giving or provided to any person suffering either from a major or a minor issues of injury or illness before the medical help arrives. This is very important for us. So, I would like to share an incident that as a teacher I faced it in my regular classes. Nose bleeding. The most of the students that they often come to us complaining. If it is for a junior school, the teacher needs to be extra vigilant and she has to be very cautious as the kids are too young to
My
handle it
video on.
for themselves. So, as a general aid, what I could give is I could make the child lie down on her back or his back and give some cold pack on the nasal area. Now, this might be or might not be the correct way of giving the aid. So today, I would like to say that I'm truly happy to be a part of this panel so that we get a proper guidance for the first aid that has to be given on time.
Okay. Hi, I'm Smriti. I'm 17 years old and I'm from the Netherlands. I am currently in my last year of high school, and Dr. Sujata, she told me about her I Act Fast program about first aid, and I thought, wow, this is such an interesting course and such a great initiative. Like, everyone should know about first aid. Even I should know about first aid, because there have been situations where I've seen people get hurt or injured, and I felt very helpless because I don't know what to do in that situation. I don't know how to help that person. And I think we often fail to consider that being a helpless victim in an emergency situation can potentially make the situation even worse for that person. So from doing this course, I realized that how knowing these simple procedures and techniques with the assistance of minimal equipment can ease someone's pain and potentially even save a life. I would like to take the example of my sister. So a few weeks back, she fell off her bike and she hurt her arm pretty badly. Like, she hurt her elbow. She's fine, by the way. But yeah, she hurt herself pretty badly and she was in a lot of pain. But because I'd taken the first aid course, because I knew about some techniques, I knew how to ease her pain. I knew that I had to make sure that her arm was nicely wrapped around with the cloth so that she can restrict, so that the movement is restricted, and so that, it doesn't pain as much for her. And I wrapped her cloth around with the string around her neck so that she can't move her arm at all. So this is just one such example where learning first aid came in helpful, but learning first aid could come in handy in many different situations. Yeah.
Thank you, Nirupa. Thank you, Usha, and thanks, Smriti. Clearly, you're all here for a reason, and there is a need for first aid. Now, just a couple of things about, first aid and what we really need to know. So we'll just kind of go through that for a bit. Let me just share my slides. Okay, yeah. So in the next 1 hour, we're just going to go through a little bit about what are the first aid requirements for children. So we'll have different perspectives from the parent side, from the teachers, and as well as a student. And what we need to do in the first few minutes, we call that platinum minutes, because we need to see what we can do in the commonly encountered scenarios. So the most important thing is minor injuries, although they look minor, can have some major impact. So it's important that we identify it. What should be the first aid provider's goals? What should they do? The first thing is, I want you to remember, first aid provider is not to cure. The aim is to only prevent further harm. So it's important to make sure that you assist in their recovery, you prevent further deterioration, and it's basically preserving life. So we have a simple algorithm for how to manage first aid. And this is simple to remember. It's called I Act Fast. So I stands for identifying the problem. A is to activate the emergency services when required. C is actually the care that you give. And T is the transfer to a hospital as required. So FAST is the first aid safety training. And I suggest that whenever you have any problem, think about I act and think about how you will actually identify and how you will care for the child, and think about when to transfer the child. So with that, we'll just start off with our Facebook polls to go live. I'll request my colleagues Shruti and Suhas and Prajwal to put the Facebook polls on. So I request all the viewers to actually take this opportunity and go on and vote for the right answers that you find it here. There will be a poll of 6 questions. So we'll start off with the first one when Shruti says yes.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah. So what will I do if I see a 4th grade child who faints in the assembly? A, sprinkle water on the face, transfer to the sick bay immediately. Option C, wake them up and make them sit. D, lie them down and put their feet up. I'd like the audience to actually do the polls. Mark A, B, C, D, which you think suits.
Right. We can move on to the next question, Doctor.
The next one. What will I do if a 5-year-old child starts with sudden bout of cough while eating the apple and becomes breathless? So he's basically choking. So A, tap the head immediately. B, offer water. C, pat the back firmly. D, put the finger deep in the mouth and just make sure you remove the blocking apple piece. So pick a choice of A, B, C, D. When you're ready, we'll go to the next one.
Next, Doctor.
So the next question, if an 8-year-old child starts staring and then the eyes roll up, he falls down and starts shaking his hands and legs. So this is almost like a fits that the child is having. So your options are A, cover the child with blankets. B, put a metal key in hands immediately. C, hold his hands firmly, both his hands and feet, so they stop shaking. And D is time the duration.
Let's wait for 5 seconds more, Doctor.
Shall we move to the next one?
Just 5 seconds more. I think people are participating now.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I encourage everyone to feel free and just, vote in the polls, because this is all about trying to understand where we are. And then we'll see, hopefully we'll be able to address the right approach over the next hour.
Next.
Okay. So what will I do if a 7-year-old child has sudden bleeding from nose? We pinch the nose, lie them down safely, give them water to drink, ask them to blow and clean the nose with the kerchief. So pick your choice. This is sudden bleeding from the nose.
Okay, doctor, we can go.
Okay, the next one. A 10-year-old child has a fall and he has hurt his leg. He is crying in pain and is not able to stand. So the options are A, ask them to walk slowly and carefully. B, lie them down safely. C, give them water to drink. And D, immobilize the limb.
Everything seems correct, doctor. So we're just everybody, I think, is confused on what to answer.
Oh, okay. So pick the most chosen. What do you think you will do? The first thing you will do.
Yeah, I'm also participating, by the way.
Excellent.
Right. Okay. Can we? Yes. Let's move on to the next question.
Okay. So a 6-year-old child is struggling to breathe after dunking face down in the swimming pool. So your options are A, lift him from the pool and press his tummy. B, lift him from pool and check if he's alert. C, lift him from the pool and press his chest. D, lift him from the pool and start the CPR. So this is the last question.
Okay, we'll wait for 5 seconds more. And doctor, we will be repeating the first question again, only the first one. Right? So we have a request as well for the first question. So we'll do that. You're on mute, doctor. Okay, we can stop this. Yeah. Can we have the first question again?
Yeah. We'll have the first question now again.
Yes.
What will I do if a 4th grade child faints in the assembly? A, sprinkle water on the face. B, transfer to sick bay immediately. C, wake them and make them sit. D, let them lie down and put their feet up.
Okay. I think we can move on to the next part, doctor.
Okay. So I think Mrs. Nirupa had some queries about what to do at home. So, Nirupa, do you want to ask us?
Certainly, Doctor. Doctor, my question is basically about birthday parties because we host birthday parties for kids and even our children go attend. And there are different age group of kids who come and attend the birthday parties. Some of them have allergies. You know, there are different issues with each child. Parents are definitely making sure that they keep us informed. But all the time around the party, we don't go around looking at each child to make sure that, you know, they take care. So how do we prepare for any unforeseen eventualities here?
It's a wonderful question, Nirupa. We'll just go through a few common emergencies that you will see, especially when you're hosting parties like that. That's quite a relevant question. I know at the moment we are not able to, host parties, but we'll just go through some precautions that as a parent that you can prepare. One of the first things that we see is an allergy. Now, the allergy can be because of your environment or because of the food that they consume or to the coloring agents, any of these. So to identify a child who's having allergy, when we just apply the IAC, algorithm, you can see that your identification is by seeing if there are any itchy skin rashes. So the child will come up with some rashes and starts itching. You may see some raised, rashes which are red. You may see the child is streaming from his nose or sneezing continuously, and they may have watery eyes and itchy eyes as well. This is a way to identify that this child is, having some form of allergy that is, started. Now, ideally, we should remove any triggers. We need to identify, if there is a contact or if there is a bite or whatever, we need to identify what that trigger is. And then once you remove them from that environment, that is most important so that we can identify what triggered it. It's usually either the food or the coloring agents, or if there is any environmental, say dust or whatever, it just triggered it. Sometimes even the candle, the flames, any of these can actually trigger the allergies. So you make sure that you position the child comfortably. So the comfortable position is always which the child assumes, which is comfortable for him to breathe. Okay. And then if there are any tight clothes, you can just loosen them and you can apply some kind, if for the skin rashes, which are very itchy, you can apply some kind of moisturizer. Ideally, you can, simple coconut oil is enough if it is available at home, just so that the continuous itching kind of reduces. If you do have an anti-allergic at home, you may be able to give it to the child at that point of time. The common anti-allergic medications that we can store at home is something like cetirizine. So syrup cetirizine can be kept at home. So it depends on the age of the child, but roughly for a 5 or 6 year old, you can give something like 5 ml, you can give it. And then you may be able to take them to the nearest hospital. If there is a documented allergy, or if it's always a good idea to check before hosting the party, to check with whoever are attending, whether there are any documented allergies so that that can be avoided, and ask the parents what their precautions are. But the most life-threatening thing is something called anaphylaxis. Now, they can present similarly with like allergy, but what is very important is they will have swollen lips, eyes, their face can just get swollen up. They will start having breathing difficulty and they may just collapse. Now, this is a life-threatening thing. And at this point, if you see swelling in the lips, face, or eyes, it's very important, to take them or rush them to the nearest emergency department. There is no time to waste here. What you can do on your way is make sure that you remove any triggers and you position the child in the most comfortable way that they can breathe. Okay. Usually the child likes to sit up and, bend their body forward to breathe. You may be hearing some kind of noisy breathing. For example, we call it as stridor. So they're struggling to breathe in or breathe out. So both are an issue. So you may notice this. So it's very important for this kind of emergency to rush them to the nearest emergency department. So it's a good idea to know wherever you are, which is your nearest emergency department and what is the best way to reach them. If they do have any emergency services available, you can ring them up so that they can come with any oxygen or whatever to your place. And another thing is bites. You will see them, most of the time children biting each other. So it's important to actually just find out whether there is any, bleeding that is happening in the site of the bite. So whether there is a skin breach. So it's important to just wash the, bite area immediately with some antiseptic soap if it's available and dry it. If you see that the skin is punctured, we normally suggest some kind of antibiotic cream to be put. The normal antibiotics that we tend to recommend is something like T-Bact. There is any of those which are available. If you go to a pharmacy, they will actually give it to you. If you do identify, insect bites, then it's very important to remove that sting if it is stuck still in the skin. You can use the blunt edge of the knife if required, or even, just a card, to just remove that out of the skin. Okay. If at all it's an animal bite, it's very important that such children will need anti-rabies injections, and you will still have to go to the hospital for that. And then in terms of human bites, majority of the time, if the skin is not breached, just a simple wash and wait and watch is enough. But if it is deep enough, sometimes they may need a course of oral antibiotics. So you need to consult your pediatrician for that. Another thing, when they're eating, as you saw, if they get stuck with a apple piece or a fruit or a raisin, any such thing, a plum, they may just choke on it. So how do you identify choking? So you need to make sure that you see that the child is nearly suddenly stopped to talk and then is catching for his breath. They have immense breathing difficulty because their breathing pipe is blocked with whatever foreign body. Okay, so it's very important at that point that you know how to handle it. Now, it depends on the age of the child. So if you have a young child, as you can see what this dad is doing, he's holding in his left hand, he's positioning the face and keeping the mouth open. But he has put his child on his knees. He has kept the child head low a little bit, and he's giving something called back blows. So it's very important to give those 5 back blows with the mouth open. So if the foreign body is there, it can just come out immediately. Now, this is the first thing that we recommend for parents to do. If it's an older child, you can just do the same thing with the child sitting up, but you can actually reach from the back and then do that. Now, there's a special procedure called Heimlich's maneuver. Now, that's a little complicated, but it is important to actually familiarize with that one. And it is better to get formally trained to do the Heimlich's maneuver. Whereas this one is a simple thing to do if it's a young child. Okay. If you do identify that the child is really not breathing, now in that case, you will have to do something called a CPR. So in this situation, you have to activate an emergency service and then start the CPR if you know how to do it. Time matters here, and it's the faster you are able to act, the faster you are able to move on and save the child. Now, another common thing is about food poisoning. So this may not happen during the party, but actually, usually, if it is food poisoning related events, related to whatever is being consumed in the party, usually the symptoms take about 6 hours or something like that for them to start with the symptoms. Then only you can relate it to food poisoning. So they may come with vomiting, tummy pain. They may have some loose stools. They may be looking a bit pale. And majority of the time, you just have to do good hydration. Symptomatic relief we give. So majority of them will have some kind of, medicines for vomiting. Okay. And you can give that at home and see where, so you give the medicine, wait for half an hour, and then get them to eat or drink something. If the child is repeatedly vomiting, you have to go to the hospital because you cannot hydrate such a child if they're continuously vomiting. So these are some of the common emergencies that you may notice, especially party-related events. Does that answer your question then, Nirupa?
Absolutely, it does. Thanks a lot, Doctor.
Yeah. Usha, do you have anything specific about children in
Yeah,
in the
definitely,
school?
I do have. Here, actually, we conduct assemblies, school assemblies, which takes around 20 to 30 minutes in a day. Okay. And we usually discuss the prayer and other details or general instructions to the children. And I see many children fainting down there. What is the first aid that I can be able to give to the child? Is it fits or seizures, or it is the general fainting?
Okay, good question there, Usha. Once again, a common problem that we see in in the schools, and majority of the times teachers end up bringing those children to the hospital. So what are the first aid things that we can do for such children? So if it is fits, one thing which you will identify is there may be jerking of limbs. Now this may or may not be there for all children, but generally you will see, and you try to hold the limb, that movement doesn't stop, that jerking doesn't stop. That's how you know that that's probably a fit, okay, or a seizure. There may be uprolling of the eyes. They may be having some frothing at mouth, and they may not be responding very well. Okay. In these situations, it is better to activate emergency services. Now, as a first aid thing, what you can do is positioning. Okay. I've just put a picture there. So there's something called recovery position. As you can see, so you see that, you turn the patient or the person to their left hand side. Okay. You can see how the position of the arms, legs are. So that's a recovery position. So that's one thing which I want you to do first. And then you can actually time the event. Timing the event is very important because we tend to give medicines only if it is lasting more than 5 minutes. Majority of the time, these fits end up subsiding by themselves if it is less than 5 minutes. As a result, as a pediatrician, when children are brought to my emergency department, I find that when I'm treating them, if, because the teachers or the parents are panicking so much, majority of the time they don't time the event at all. So we don't know for how long this has gone on. Any fits that is lasting more than 5 minutes, it is unlikely that they will subside without medications. So it's very important that you time the event. So while you're providing the support, there's no need for anything extra, okay, at this point of time. Now, if you do have a child who has problem with seizures, they may carry a nasal spray. So it's important to look out for that and see whether you can administer that nasal spray to them. So find out if there is any, children with seizure disorder. It should not restrain their regular activity, but it's important for the teacher to know how to administer, or if you have a school nurse, how to keep those emergency medicines in the school or in the bag of the child. Now, you asked about faints. Now, this is what we normally see or you would encounter in the school. So you look a child who is looking very pale and suddenly just collapsing right in front of you, just losing their posture. And they or may not be responding very well. They may feel like, and when you ask these children, they just have a proper blackout. Now, once again, it is the same thing. It's important to just put them in the left lateral position, like how this child is lying down. It's called the recovery position. You can keep the limbs up so that whatever blood supply is goes towards the brain. And so you can elevate the limbs. If they're wearing any tight clothes, you can loosen them, especially the tie and the top buttons. You can just loosen them. And then once the child is fully awake, then you can hydrate them. Sometimes children may not have their breakfast and then they end up coming there. So their sugars may be low. So you can offer them a sugar drink if necessary. So these are some of the things that we can do, for children. So I want to ask Smriti at this point of time. Smriti, what kind of emergencies have you seen in your school, apart from fits and faints?
So I have actually seen quite a couple nosebleeds happening to people, not just like right now, but also when I was younger, when I was in primary school, I saw a lot of people have a lot of nosebleeds. And what people used to do was they used to stuff tissues or cotton inside it, thinking that that would prevent the blood flow and just to ease the pain. But after learning about first aid, I realized that is not exactly the right approach to treating nosebleeds. So in case of a nosebleed, I think it is it is recommended that we apply pressure to the nose to prevent the nosebleed. Now, nosebleeds can be caused by many things. A few examples I'd like to give is a foreign object being stuck in the nose, or it can also be caused by an allergic reaction or chemical irritants, or even picking the nose quite aggressively can also cause nosebleed. Also injury to the nose, for example, being hit by a football or any kind of object. Many things can cause a nosebleed. So if it's obviously a severe situation, it is recommended to alert emergency services. But in terms of a first aid procedure, it is recommended that we apply pressure to the nose. We pinch the nose for about 2 to 5 minutes on the soft side of the nostrils and make sure that the person leans forward to prevent any kind of blood flow. And this should eventually prevent any kind of blood flow, any kind of nose bleeding. Would you like to take over and talk about eye and ear injuries?
Yeah, I just thought I'll just elaborate on what you said. You said absolutely right. It's important to position the child like if it's a young child, and it's important to just press the nose firmly. And as you rightly said, it should be on the soft part of the nose, and be patient for 2 to 5 minutes. If the bleeding is lasting more than that, then they may need to see the doctor. So I think Usha was telling me how, it is. Do you want to share your experience, Usha, about how panicky children get
Yeah,
when they see the bleed?
usually it happens in the junior school wherein the children are very scared of something called as red. Okay, the color makes
Yeah,
lot of panic things, and especially when it comes for nose bleeding, the entire classroom is at chaos, and they move towards the teacher or the any helper who comes there and says that there is something that has happened, and the flow of blood is like too much, and the child might have some kind of serious complications. But
yeah.
often we that what we have seen is, it's of course a very small thing, but still the matter of 10 ml or the 15 ml scares us also as teachers.
Yeah.
So
So
often,
I think we have some kind of strategy here now.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there can be some eyes and ear injuries also. So it's very important to just look out for them as well. If you do find that, there is, any foreign body or anything in the eye, as they have shown here, if they have watery eyes and they are like, it's become red, you can like flush clear water, just like this running water with, keeping the eyes a bit open. First of all, it's important to make sure that any triggers that cause this incident should be removed. So wherever you can identify, make sure that that is not an ongoing thing. Children do tend to put, small objects. I've seen peanuts and beads and things like that, which children just stuff in their nose or ears. If you identify any of those, it's important to like take them to the nearest emergency department. So we'll take a small break here. I have my special guest today. Can I invite my special guest today, Krishna Diya? Are you here?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
Okay. Welcome, Diya. Can you tell me something about yourself and tell us what special message you have for us today?
Yes. So my name is Krishna Diya. I'm 7 years old and I live in Bangalore. So I'm very passionate about music. I love music. And I'm lucky that I was one of the finalists in the Malayalam, most popular Malayalam show in Kerala, which is called Flowers Top Singer.
Exactly. You are a celebrity for us. Yeah? You want to share one of your songs with us?
Yes, and thank you, Sujat Aunty, for inviting me for this.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Okay, so I'm gonna sing a song for you.
Done.
Thank you, Gulumol, for a wonderful performance.
Thank you.
Dia is such a beautiful performer. I mean, it's really a delight to watch this cutie pie perform. I mean, she got this Gulumol name also as a pet name in the show. So it's really delightful to see you here, Dia.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Doctor, I basically have a question for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I wanted to know basic child safety measures at home, because this is something that each one of us should really be handful and we should know the details. So could you guide us with the basic child safety measures at home?
Yeah. So that's quite an important thing for parents. And if we look at the statistics, actually majority of the problems happen at home. So it's important that children are safe at home. One of the commonest emergencies you see is about having this electric shock. So it's very important to make sure that if you do identify any issues there, make sure that children are not accessible to electrical equipment at home, especially as you can see this child, they should not have such kind of situation. So make sure that if there are open plugs, then they are blocked there with suitable measures, or they're not accessible. So if you do identify a child who is at risk, what you may see is this child may be having problems with breathing, they may be unconscious, they may have fits, and they may look very pale. These are some of the things that you will see. Now, the first thing that you have to do is make sure that, the contact with the electrical source is immediately removed. And then you may need to kind of think about checking the child for needing CPR at all. Okay. And then this is a child that you need to transfer immediately to the hospital. It's if you don't know how to do CPR, you have to activate your emergency immediately. The other things that you see is if there is hot mugs and, liquid mugs for anything, say coffee, tea, or even hot water, especially when you are in the, in the washroom, you may see that you have switched on the hot water to collect the water. So I always recommend that it's important that when you are collecting water and you have a child available there, don't run the very hot water first. Always run in the middle so that you have like a reasonable water collected, or first collect the cold water and then run the hot water, so that even if the child has actually enters there, they're not like burning themselves up or causing scalds to them. So some of the things that you can do immediately is, first of all, needless to say, remove the source of the heat or the scald, whatever is the source that has to be removed. And then you can get whatever is the burnt part, or the scalds part, you can just kind of run under water. So you wash that for at least more than 10 minutes. So just like how I've just shown in the picture. If it's a small area, if it's a very big area, just make sure that nothing is stuck there. Don't forcibly remove anything. You don't need to apply anything, rub anything, apply ice or do any such things. Or if there are any blisters there, popping them. These are all not something that we recommend. If you do have an antibiotic cream, you can apply if it's, if it's readily available. Okay. And if it is, more than like say the size of the palm of the child, then I recommend you to go to the nearest emergency department. So that's about burns and scalds. Very common, one of the commonest emergencies. And it's very important that safety, prevention is more important here rather than the first aid. Then now almost all the flats have swimming pools. It is very important that, you identify if there is any incidents of drowning that can happen. Although the pools are all fairly shallow and child-friendly, it's just important to be aware of what to do if you do find a child that is drowning. So check for consciousness, check if the child is breathing, and if you can feel the pulse at all. And any drowning child, better to activate the emergency services. So in terms of care, remove the child from danger, wherever they are in. Make sure that you position the child properly, remove all the wet clothes, and then, you can keep the child warm. And if you find that the child is not breathing or you can't feel the pulse, you need to start the CPR immediately. That is the only time-tested one that has saved lives. So needless to say, this child has to be transferred immediately. Then one of the other things, at the end of the doors or even the cupboards, you find jammed finger. They just keep their finger there. So you may notice that the fingers are swollen. They may be very painful and the child may not be able to move that finger. Sometimes you may see part of the finger being completely cut off or partially cut off as well. So any such incidents, apply ice immediately. If you do have a part of the finger or anything that has just fallen off, you just need to make sure that you have put that in a bag of ice immediately and take it to the hospital. So if you do have bleeding, you have to press that part with, with a tissue or with, with any clean cloth, or if you have gauze or first aid kit, you can just press it enough so that the bleeding stops. Okay. And if the child is, we'll talk about immobilization and splinting in a bit. Okay. So these are some of the things that you need to do and take them to the hospital immediately. So I've just put a picture of what is called splinting. So if you do have, something like a small stick, okay, you can apply that on either side so that the finger doesn't move. Now, what it does is, it helps, you can strap it like what has been shown here with whatever equipment you have at home, okay? So that way the pain will come down. You always use the next finger as the support. So you can see here that they have used the next finger and strapped it together, okay? And bleeding is another thing that you see, okay? So wherever you see, identify, apply direct pressure, okay, with the sterile dressing wherever you have, and wait till the bleeding stops, okay? Don't ignore or delay. Now, there was a question earlier on, if you do identify somebody who's looking pale and you think that they have bled a lot or their consciousness is reduced, then it's important to identify that sometimes whatever bleed you see externally may be important, but that gives you a quantity or an estimation of how much blood loss that has happened. So roughly our body has something like 80 ml per kilo of blood of our body weight. So suppose we are 10 kg, we have something close to 800 ml of blood in our body. So that's how roughly it works out. So you will be able to estimate. Now, if we lose 20% or 1/5 of that blood volume, then we start showing all these signs, okay, where we turn pale, or we look like we are tired, or we may be very agitated, any such things. So, externally, if you are not able to see that, but, if you find that the person is pale or showing these signs, it's important to think about that and rush them to the nearest hospital, because they may be having bleeding inside. So internal bleeding may be happening. So it's just important to think about that. Okay. So I'm just going to ask Usha, you had some questions about,
Yes.
other emergencies you face in the school.
Yes, you have already told us about the injuries that happens usually at home, and you have cleared the doubts, I believe. And now I would like to know that what are the other common injuries that we can actually find in school, and how alert can, as a teacher, be aware of this first aid there?
Yeah. So some of the things that we probably identify is falls. I think this is either at home or in school, some of the commonest things that you will identify. Now, these injuries can happen anywhere from the head to the toe, anywhere. You may see some active bleeding as well. So it's important when a child falls, check whether they're conscious. So that's the most important thing. I've put something called AVPU. Now, this is a simple algorithm that most of the pre-hospital care doctors, and even sometimes in the hospital, we look at when we want to check for how conscious a person is. So alert is somebody who is able to talk and respond to you normally, okay, and they are aware and they are able to do it spontaneously. Then V is somebody who responds to you only when you verbally stimulate them. That means you talk to them and say, hey, are you all right? And then they may say yes or no. But they are not talking by themselves to say that I've hurt my leg or something like that. And then you have P. That means they're not able to talk. But when you actually give a painful stimulus, so you may like either pinch or move or whatever, then they may just kind of make a little, they may just wince a little bit, or they may just move their arm or leg away from that painful stimulus. And U is actually unresponsive. So it's important to have this category. So anybody who is alert, you don't have to worry much. If they are just about responding to verbal stimulus, you can wait and watch and see whether that improves to becoming alert. But if they are not responding to voice, and they're, probably they're unresponsive or move only with painful stimulus, that's a child that needs to be in the hospital immediately. So these are some of the things to think about with the falls. So in terms of what you can do, if you do identify a bleeding, injury, you need to make sure that you, clean that area with whatever antiseptic you have. If it is actively bleeding, make sure that you apply with a sterile dressing, apply direct pressure till it stops, okay? And then if there is any swelling, you can apply some ice for pain relief, and then you do something called immobilization. That means you don't want that part of the body which has got hurt to move. Okay. And then you should think about transferring such children to the hospital. Now, fractures are something that everybody is scared of. So basically, fracture you can think of when you have somebody with a swollen, painful injury with reduced movement. Okay, so you try to move their arm or leg, they are like screaming in pain. Majority of the times, it is not that the bone is broken, but there are like even small breaks or cuts on the bone can cause immense pain. So the first thing to do is to rest that part of the body or the limb. Then you can apply a splint so that that part, there is no pressure on that part of the body which has got injured or which has got the swelling there. You can apply ice locally. Okay. And depending on where the injuries are, you can think of other measures such as compression or elevation, depending on what is the type of the injury. So for fractures, one thing I want you to remember is resting and immobilizing or splinting. Those are the two things, and you can apply ice locally. If you have a pain relief at home available, you can give such syrups immediately and then take them to the hospital. So in terms of head injuries, which may happen of various degrees, so you may see children coming with swelling, they may come with cuts, they may come with a bleeding injury, and they may have loss of consciousness or variable degree of consciousness. They may vomit. Some children may even have fits. Now, if it is, if the child is having variation in their consciousness or if they're vomiting, if they're having fits, you could still follow the same measures, but these are the ones where you should activate emergency services and transfer them immediately to the hospital. So what can you do? You can apply ice, okay? You can apply compression, direct pressure for bleeding injuries, and then monitor for warning signs and take them to the hospital. Does that answer some of your queries then, Usha?
Yeah, definitely. It has almost cleared all these things because I was more worried about this head injury.
Yeah.
In fact, because usually in buses, I find because the children try to, mob themselves there. So I was much concerned about this. Thank you.
Okay. So it looks like, these injuries are fairly common. Now, some of the things that we identify is, what can we do in the school if such injuries happen? I am going to call upon Smriti because she's been a first aid responder and she's been involved in training. So Smriti, do you want to share some of your experience in Netherlands?
Yes, so I carried out a smaller version of the first aid course along with a friend of mine at school, where we taught about a specific first aid technique for students in 6th grade. And we did this about a month ago, and this was around the time where there weren't many corona cases and there weren't many strict regulations around it. That's why we could do it physically at school. We were even going back to normal classes, so we thought it would be a great opportunity to teach kids something important, something about first aid. So usually around this time, which is the beginning of the school year, these kids in 6th grade go to something called camp, and they basically go to a specific place in the Netherlands where they experience the camp life. They live in tents, they go to the forest, they do a lot of fun activities. But due to Corona, they couldn't go. And that is why the teachers thought that they would kind of replicate that and do a smaller or kind of like a school version of that at school itself. So they asked my class if we could carry out some activities for the kids. And we wanted to do first aid in specific because there's something called a learner profile, which all these kids in 6th grade are supposed to follow, which basically consists of qualities a student is supposed to have. And one of them is being a caring individual. And we thought that maybe through this first aid technique, kids can also learn about being a caring individual, but also learn something valuable about first aid. So we did an activity where kids would learn how to immobilize a limb. So obviously we didn't have any kind of professional equipment or anything. So we decided to use hockey sticks and these colorful bands instead from our gym at school where people usually do sports. Now, initially we planned to do it with actual wooden sticks and pieces of cloth, but unfortunately they didn't come right on time for this activity. So we had to think quick. We had to think on our spot of coming up with an alternative. So we kind of walked around school and we thought maybe hockey sticks would be a good idea because kids can have a better grip on it. And we also found these bands in our gym. So we used this instead of the sticks and the cloth that we were meant to have. So this can obviously be a great alternative in terms of immobilizing a limb. So we worked with what was available, and I feel like this works well with first aid because in emergency situations, we have to work with what is available and make the best out of what is there. Can you go back to the slide? Yeah, so we asked kids to get into pairs and we set up a scenario that one of them has gotten a fracture and we asked them what they would do right before the medical services would arrive. So first we asked them to try it out themselves, try and figure out with what is available. And clearly they didn't really get it right. They thought that the hockey stick could be used as a walking stick or something like that. So we did this activity for approximately 90 kids, but almost nobody got the right technique. And I think there was just like 1 or 2 kids who actually got it right. But yeah, nobody really got it right. So then afterwards, we gave a specific set of instructions on what to exactly do and how to exactly immobilize a limb. And that is when they got it right. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, and as you can see, they're doing a pretty good job. They're actually wrapping it around nicely. They're using the hockey sticks. And we tried to make sure that this is a very active learning environment. So we asked a lot of questions during this activity. Questions like, why are we using hockey sticks? What is the purpose of restricting movement? What could be used instead of hockey sticks and these bands? What would you do in such an emergency situation? And we try to make it as engaging as possible. And on top of that, we also taught kids how to be a good emotional support to their peers. And this was done by also asking questions like, what would make them feel comfortable and how to make sure that they wouldn't induce any kind of panic in that situation. So all in all, this was a really great experience, and we're glad that the kids enjoyed this activity because they ended up leaving the place learning some kind of valuable knowledge that they can possibly apply later on in their lives. Yeah.
And it looks like they're having a lot of fun as well, Smriti. How many kids did you train?
Yeah, so like I said, I did 90 kids in total, but we did it in batches of 10 so that we could give them all of our attention. And yeah, and also at the end of the whole session, we grouped them up, we brought them in a group, and we asked them to reflect on everything they had learned. And also we wanted to make sure that everyone left with the right information, with the right important information, saying that, like, kind of pointing out that their job is to prevent further harm and not to kind of cure that person or anything like that. And we also made sure that they knew the emergency number to call in the Netherlands. And yeah, it was a great experience.
Amazing. So great job by Smriti there. So I think it's very inspiring for us to see that, we're not just teaching them, and you've actually put it in action. You've inspired a generation of school students probably to try and do this. And the hockey sticks was just something awesome. I think Netherlands is quite good in hockey, huh? So that's amazing. I think before we wrap up, we have a wonderful special guest for me today. And may I introduce Pranav? Is Pranav here?
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah. Tell us, Pranav,
everyone.
You have a special guest.
I'm Pranav. So I would say never say never. And I would like to start my song out with that. So here we go. Never say never. Yeah. Never, ever, 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 Oh, see, I never thought that I could walk through fire. I never thought that I could face the burn. I never had the strength to take it higher until I reached the point of no return. And there's just no turning back when your heart's under attack. Gonna give everything I have. It's my destiny. I will never say never. I will fight to forever. Make it right whenever you knock me down. I will not stay on the ground. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, up. Never say never. Never say never. Never say never. Never say never. Never say it. Never say it. I never thought I could feel this power. I never thought that I would feel this free. I'm strong enough to climb the highest tower, and I'm fast enough to run across the sea. And there's just no turning back when your heart's under attack. Gonna give everything I have, 'cause this is my destiny. I will never say never. I will fight it forever. Make it right whenever you knock me down. I will not stay on these lines. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Never say never. Thank you.
Thanks, Pranav. That's wonderful. That's a great message for us to end up. Never say never, huh?
Yeah.
Tell us something about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Pranav Swaroop, studying in 8th grade from MPS Whitefield School. So like I like many things. I like to indulge into activities more, especially like this one. And even I like to perform like music shows and many other things. So thanks for the opportunity, Sujata auntie and Nirupa auntie.
Wonderful. Pranav, thank you for ending the session with a wonderful song and a message for us. Thank you. So, Shruti, I'm just trying to find out, are there any questions that we need to answer from the audience? I've just picked up a few questions. We'll just go through that in a bit. And then, before wrapping up, we need to know how effective this session was. So we'll just go through the Facebook polls again. So please stay tuned in. So one of the questions I have. Wonderful. So one of the questions that I have is, you come upon a person who has lost a significant amount of blood, has a very pale skin color and is confused. What do you suspect the cause to be? Okay. So this is something called hemorrhagic shock. We say that. Okay. So if you don't see external bleeding, it may be internal bleeding. If a person is already confused and is looking pale, that means he's lost nearly kind of 30 to 40% of his blood volume. So this one needs to go immediately to the hospital. You must activate your emergency services. So for India, it is 108. And if there is a delay, you can just rush to the nearest emergency department. I was asked, what do you suspect the cause to be? It can be anything from not just the blood loss, it could be a significant head injury as well. So it's just important to be aware of various things. Okay. The next question I have is, while performing CPR on an infant, another rescuer appears on the scene. What do you do next? Immediately transport the patient, wait until exhausted, then switch, have the second rescuer help with CPR. To minimize fatigue, have the second rescuer begin ventilations, ratio 30:2. Is that, a choice given for us? So a few things that we can do is, if you are a single rescuer, the recommendation is you activate emergency services first, or you call for help first, then start the CPR. When your second rescuer comes, you can continue your cardiac massage because that has to go uninterrupted no matter what it is. And then you can get your second rescuer to do the breathing for you. You can switch between the two every 3 minutes if required. Okay. And hopefully you will get the ambulance services arriving on the scene to rescue you all before you get exhausted. At the end of 1 minute of CPR, you must make sure that if your help hasn't come, you need to call back for emergency services. Now, another question that I have is, can I be sued for doing first aid? Well, now that's a tricky thing. So it's important you know that you're doing the right first aid. So ideally, if you are trained or if you're aware, then it is better you attempt that. Otherwise, make sure that you are aware of what needs to be done before blindly attempting. So be informed. So if you have attended this webinar, you will have some idea about what to do and what not to do. So, about suing, it is possible if you have done the wrong thing. The next question is, what if I don't have a first aid kit at the scene of an accident? Yeah. Now, it's very important to think about what aspect of first aid kit do you need at the scene of the accident. So, in terms of immobilization, as what Smriti had just shared, they use the hockey sticks to immobilize. So if there are equipment available like that, you should not hesitate to use that. That is still our recommendation, that you try to utilize what is available on the scene. Okay. And if you do have like a clean cloth, you can apply pressure. You can do active bleeding control. That's something that you can do. Okay. And there are certain training sessions available. So I can recommend my colleagues who are doing fantastic work in Hyderabad as a part of the program called ABC, Active Bleeding Control. My colleague, Dr. Gitanjali, who is a co-founder and is also the lead for the ABC program, is working with the EMRI services, 108 services, as well as, the Road Safety Club and the Public Health Foundation of India. And they're doing a fantastic job training the students, training the police officers and the auto drivers and the community to see how to do this active bleeding control at the site of the accident. So it's something that you should consider if you are looking forward to providing first aid. My recommendation is still that get a formal training, to do first aid, be aware, have some information, and then do the right things at the right time. Are there any more questions then, Shruti?
I think that is it, Doctor.
Okay.
We can move on to the poll.
Yeah. Shall we do the polls again, just to see where we are? I'll just kind of share the screens again.
Right.
I request everyone to do the polls again, and then we'll reveal the answers as and when. So it's the same questions again. Okay. So those of you who have attended, you may be able to do the polls again and tell us whether there's anything different you would have chosen. So we'll start with the first question. Tell me, Shruti.
Yes. We can start with the first question.
Yeah. So what will I do if a 4th grade child faints in the assembly? Sprinkle water on the face, transfer to sick bay immediately, wake them and make them sit. D is let them lie down and put their feet up.
We will wait for some time, Doctor.
Yeah, sure.
So that everybody can participate.
Yeah.
Doctor, should we reveal the answer now?
So the answer is D. Okay. So you lie them down and put their feet up.
Okay, let's see how many of them have put that right. Can we reveal the answer?
Yeah, D.
Great. Okay.
So what does our poll say?
Just a second, doctor. Okay, so still people are answering A as well. So there is
Okay.
75 and 25. 75 for D and 25 for A.
Okay. So we need to come out of the Bollywood thing of sprinkling water on the face. So fainting.
Right. So, but the best part is that, we had 100% at the first time saying A,
Yeah.
but now 75% are saying B. So that should be
So we
good.
have new people who haven't seen the thing joining in, is it?
Yes. Maybe they have joined in later.
Yeah.
Okay. Can
So
we move
just
on
to
to the next?
remind all of us, okay, please lie them down and put their feet up. Okay. So the next thing is, a 5-year-old child starts with sudden bout of cough while eating the apple and becomes breathless. So this is basically a choking episode. So the options are tap the head immediately, offer water, pat the back firmly, put the finger deep in the mouth and try to remove the blocking apple piece.
Waiting for 5 more seconds. Okay, can we stop the poll now, doctor?
Yeah.
And you can reveal the answer so that we will know.
Yeah. So we do the 5 back blows. So which is option C. How did we do?
Okay, let's check the answer now. How many? 4? Okay, great. Then again, we have 75% for C.
Yeah.
And 25 for the D. So it's great.
So if you have put option D, just remember just not to do that. Okay. Because if it is lying superficially, you may just push it further down and then block the breathing pipe altogether. So what is like partially breathing, person can just end up stopping to breathe. So that's one thing which you should never do. Okay. So think about doing 5 firm back blows. That's about it. We'll go with the next one. An 8-year-old child starts staring and then eyes roll up, falls down and starts shaking hands and legs. So the options are cover the child with blankets, put a metal key in hands immediately, hold firmly hands and feet to stop shaking, or time the duration. So just think about what we said. We said about recovery position, but most importantly, why we need to do what we do.
Wait for 5 more seconds. Okay, can we stop the poll now?
Yeah. So the real answer is actually you need to put that person on the recovery position and time the duration. Okay. So if you're timing the duration, then the doctors will know if it is lasting more than 5 minutes, the child will need treatment. So how did we do then, Shruti?
Just checking, Doctor. Give me a minute. Okay. Okay, so time the duration we have 50% as time the duration. 50% people say put a metal key in the hands immediately yet.
Okay. So for those of you who put a metal key in hands immediately, you can firmly stop doing that one because it doesn't add any value.
But
This is a
the
common
thing
myth.
is, yes,
Yeah.
but the thing is, doctor, 100% had said put a metal key in the hands last time, but now it is reduced to 50%. So that's a great.
Okay. Wonderful. That's a good change.
Yes.
So we see this very often. So we need to make sure that the metal key is not in the hands immediately. That is not at all the option. Okay. So shall we go to the next question? A 7-year-old child has sudden bleeding from nose. What do you do? Option A, pinch the nose. B, lie them down safely. C, give them water to drink. D, ask them to blow and clean the nose with kerchief. You can start voting now.
Okay. Doctor, can you give us the answer?
Yeah. So the right answer is A, pinch the nose. So how did we do?
Let me check. Okay. Great. We do have pinch the nose as the answer now. But last time it was 25% for pinch the nose and 75% for lie them down safely. But this time we do have
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Right.
Well done all. So we'll go to the next question. A 10-year-old has a fall and he has hurt his leg. He is crying in pain and is not able to stand. So the options are ask them to walk slowly and carefully. B, lie them down safely. C, give them water to drink. D, immobilize the limb.
Okay, doctor, can we reveal the
Yeah.
answer? Yes.
So the answer here is to immobilize the limb. Yeah. So we, Smriti spoke about the hockey sticks, and my colleague Dr. Gitanjali has put some messages there. We can use the walking sticks. We can use the sari and pallus, whichever is available to strap them, or even like put pressure for stopping the bleed. Okay. So
we do have
how are we
maximum
doing?
votes for, yes, we do have maximum votes for immobilize the limb. And
Okay.
to compare that with last time, okay, lie them down safely was the highest answer, but then this time we have the right answer with the audience.
Wonderful. So that's a good change.
Yes.
Then the next one is a 6-year-old child struggling to breathe after dunking face down in swimming pool. So the options are lift him from the pool and press tummy. B, lift him from the pool and check if he's alert. C, lift him from the pool and press chest. D, lift him from the pool and start CPR. This is a tricky one. Sorry about that.
Okay, doctor, before revealing your answer, can we ask Smriti here about the answer this time?
Yeah,
Smriti,
sure.
what do
Yeah,
you think is
so
the best answer?
right, it is a trick question, but the right answer is B. So you need to check if the person is alert first before performing any kind of CPR on them.
Okay, let's check what the audience have told. Okay, great. So doctor, we have again 50-50 answers here. Few of them say that, lift them from the pool and press tummy, and the rest 50% says lift them from the pool and check if alert.
Yeah, it's good to know the different options that people have chosen. Definitely, I wouldn't recommend pressing the tummy, because what can happen is whatever they might have swallowed, the water can just regurgitate and can block the airway which wasn't blocked before. So that's definitely not to do. So it is clearly raised that the polls have given us some indication that, people are still kind of doing some dangerous things, and so it's very important to have the first aid awareness. And I recommend still that people, think about educating themselves on first aid. There is still a huge gap, but we need to plug that in as much as possible. And with that, we want to just wrap up the session with a last summary slide, basically to say that, think about having an approach of I act fast. Okay. And we discussed today about some commonly seen illnesses, both both at home and in school. We have had parents sharing their concerns, represented by Nirupa. We had the school concerns shared by Usha, and we had our students kind of trying to see how they have taken it to the next level by Smriti, who has already done a good job in Netherlands. So it's very important to have a calm, reassuring, but most importantly, a well-trained first aid responder. So preparedness is important. And if you're in the schools, please make sure that you have a standard operating procedure for what to do, keeping safety first in your mind. So with that, I want to actually remind us all about a couple of things about the upcoming, sessions. One of the things that probably through PediSTARS in step 1, we will be organizing will be a session on CPR, and also a session on how to do active bleeding control. So my colleague, Dr. Gitanjali, will be leading those sessions in the coming few weeks. So watch out the space, and we'll try and see how as a team we are able to empower our public. I want to thank all our panelists and Step 1 volunteers, Shruti, Prajwal, and Suhas, for doing an amazing job today. And we'll be happy to take questions in the chat box on Facebook and see if we can address them. I want to thank my colleague, Dr. Gitanjali, for providing the support and ongoing, support on the Facebook as well, answering all the queries. With that, we like to close the session. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, doctor. Thanks all.
Thank you so much, doctor. I mean, if one session can make such a difference, imagine getting a formal training. So thank you so much, Dr. Sujata, for doing such a session, which was a need of the hour. And I should definitely take Krishna Diya into consideration, because she has such a beautiful voice, and for that beautiful song, that was a kind of icebreaker for the complete session. Thank you so much, Krishna Diya. Smriti, you are inspiring every one of us, so keep continuing the great work, and thank you for coming here and sharing your experience with us. Ms. Nirupa and Ms. Usha, I think those questions that you put across was so apt and so relatable, and definitely those questions have actually created the whole webinar really well. And Pranav, not to forget you, your Never Say Never song was really amazing and great. Everything was just perfect in this webinar that, a 1 hour just flew, and we wish we could do this for some more time as well. So as Dr. Sujata mentioned, we are going to do one more session soon. So stay tuned for the next webinar. Thank you so much for taking time off your busy schedule and doing this session for us. Thank you all. Dear viewers, don't forget to like, share, and Instagram and LinkedIn handles. We also have a special segment coming on the 7th of October on our Facebook Live page. So do come and watch that. For more details on Project Step 1, visit www.projectstep1.org. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming here. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.